persons today?
Good morning. With us here today are the representatives of the Commission on Human Rights. We have its chairman, Jose Luis Martin Gascon, and Executive Director Jacqueline Andigia. From the Presidential Legislative Liaison Office, we have Yusek Antonio Gallardo and Yusek Gerard A. Salapantan. We also have virtually present those who have logged in. From the CHR, we have Director Gemma Paruhinog, Attorney Tom Temprosa. So far, those are those who are virtually
Thank you.
present.
Okay, without much ado, let's start the public hearing. We will hold this hearing simultaneously, no, para for better participation of the senators and the resource persons. We can ask questions simultaneously, either from the PLLO or from the CHR. So, CHR, are you ready to present? Okay, kindly make your presentation.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. The Commission on Human Rights is ready and prepared to submit its budget for the consideration of this honorable committee and its members. And we want to preface this by saying we are grateful to the honorable members of the Senate, in particularly the chair, who has always been a champion of the mandate of the Commission on Human Rights during this current term. And as we have appeared before you in previous years, you have defended our budget before the floor, and we are grateful for that. We are going to present to you our proposed 2021 budget as it relates to the current year. Obviously, Your Honor, we understand that the priorities need to respond to the current issues facing the country and the world in relation to the pandemic. So as a result, there is a slight increase in the proposed budget, Your Honors, but significantly less than in previous years. In particular, the total increase will primarily focus on the fact that our personal services have increased. We have been able to hire a few more people from our vacant positions. So there is a increase of about 21 million on personal services, and 3 million on automatic appropriations. These are the retirement for previous commissioners, among others, and modest 16 million peso increase on MOOE. The significant reduction is, of course, in capital outlay, because we have had to set aside plans for large expenditures involving capital outlay. The details, I will, if the committee would allow, I'd like to request our executive director to
Yes,
present.
Executive Director Digia is recognized.
Thank
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
Your Honor. It is my pleasure to present to you the CHR budget presentation. Let me start with the slide providing for the 20 to 21 comparative budget summary. Compared to the 2021 NEP of 488, we have been provided the CHR 2021 ceiling of 447,821,000, or a decrease of 40,751,000. With regards our operating expenses, from the 2021 NEP of Tier 1 amounting to 306,597, we have been provided a CHR 2021 ceiling of 295,694,000, or a decrease of 10,923. And for capital outlay, for a provision of 2021 NEP of 22,614,000, none has been provided under the CHR ceiling of 2021, amounting to a decrease of negative 22,614. In terms of automatic appropriations, from 42,718,000, we have been provided a 2021 ceiling of 39,098,000. All in all, the 2021 NEP was 860,501,000, and the 2021 CHR ceiling provided was 782,593,000, or a decrease of 77,908,000. Those presented by the chair a while ago and the second slide, which I have presented, consist of the personnel services requirements of 679 filled positions as of June 8, 2020, the pension benefits of 6 former CHR commissioners and members, as pointed out by the chair, including their terminal leave benefits, and number 4 is the provision for all ongoing programs and projects, and number 5 is the provision for office productivity and software. In terms of personnel summary, we are pleased to present to you that we have achieved gender balance at both the central and regional office, accounting for at least a representative sample of both males and females. And sectorally, we have 29 IPs within the commission and 6 persons with disabilities. We have not been provided any additional budget for Tier 2. So nonetheless, we would like to briefly show to you if, for example, the Congress would kindly provide us additional budget. These are our proposed initiatives under the Tier 2 budget. Under the enhancement of the delivery of human rights services, we would like to continue sustaining the Human Rights Observatory program that would cater to migrant workers, gender-based violence, child rights, as well as the climate justice initiative. We would also like to strengthen the CHR's data protection measures in compliance with the Data Privacy Act. We have also been given more roles under the mental health law, and we would like to strengthen the implementation of the mental health law in this regard. We would also like to seek the strengthening of the international mechanisms on aging towards a convention on the rights of older persons to protect our senior citizens. In compliance with the Anti-Red Tape Act, we would like to strengthen the regional public assistance and complaints desk all over the country. And in relation to climate change, we would like to ensure that there is a human rights monitoring and advocacy in a climate justice framework. We have also initiated efforts to monitor the implementation of the Bayanihan Act of 2020 and subsequent issuances in support of the government's efforts towards COVID-19. And of course, we would also like to preserve the rights of the people in the existence of the ATL and the possible reimposition of the death penalty. We would also like to increase the grant of financial assistance to victims of human rights violations and to strengthen the interim national preventive mechanism in jails. Internally, we would also like to undergo internal restructuring that is timely and relevant to the needs of the organization, to create and classify plantilla positions, as well as to establish a program on awards and incentives for service excellence. And of course, to ensure the health and the wellness of our employees, we would like to sustain our program towards it, and also the provision of the Calamity and Disaster Assistance Program, which will also ensure the visibility of the CHR and boost the morale of our employees, as well as ensure compliance with the Safe Spaces Act and establish a systems of employee grievances. Lastly, we would like to ensure the provision for the augmentation of mandatory expenses and the provision for the needed capital outlay for 2021 and some other initiatives which we would also like to see under Tier 2. The next portion of our presentation would concentrate on the highlights and major thrusts for fiscal year 2021. We have 3 major programs: protection, promotion, and policy. The first that we will tackle will relate to Human Rights Protection Program. under which we ensure the effective and intensified documentation and management of complaints of human rights violations, including collaborative efforts with partner government agencies. We have also conducted nationwide legal clinic caravans, and during this time of pandemic, we have explored other online platforms with our Tanggol Karapatan Online. We have also sought to operationalize the interim national preventive mechanism, and we have also sought to decongest our jails through monitoring of the human rights condition of detention facilities. We have also sought to strengthen our forensic and medical legal services in aid of investigation, and we have increasingly provided security, protection, and assistance to victims or witnesses of human rights violations as well as human rights defenders. Under our promotion program, the second program of the Commission, we have undertaken focused and intensified communication efforts to improve appreciation and understanding of human rights. With the advent of social media and other viable platforms, we have sought to popularize human rights. We have also organized and mobilized a network with civil society organization so that IEC materials and projection strategies for wide media coverage are undertaken. We have also implemented campaigns to popularize human rights through culture and arts. And we have also established and strengthened centers for human rights educations and revitalized human rights action centers in local government units, knowing the importance of these institutions. For the third program, which pertains to policy advisory, we have engaged with government, with civil society, with our counterpart human rights institutions elsewhere, and charter-based and treaty-based bodies and relevant stakeholders to enhance state compliance with human rights treaties, laws, and policies and other engagements it has entered into. We have also prepared and submitted independent national human rights reports on the adherence of the Philippines to international treaty obligations on human rights. Number 3, we have also undertaken legal research and policy studies to translate international human rights treaties and norms and standards into domestic laws, and we have also submitted position papers to both Senate and the House to support domestic laws and policies, as well as a continuing program for a human rights research agenda. We have also operationalized our Human Rights Observatory, focusing on 4 thematic issues: gender-based violence, migrant workers' rights, climate justice, as well as IP rights. We have also continued the implementation of community-based dialogues, engaging with the security sector as well as CSOs to tackle relevant human rights issues. And lastly, we have adopted and implemented a human rights legislative agenda to recommend to the Congress effective measures to promote human rights and a continuing advocacy for a human rights-based approach to legislation and governance. We have also specialized or thematic human rights programs pertaining to child rights, the Center for Gender Equality and Women's Rights, the Center for Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, as well as a Center for Crisis, Conflict, and Humanitarian Assistance, tackling the issue of internally displaced persons. Lastly, we have a cooperation and partnership program. We forge partnerships and cooperative arrangements or establish coordination and networking systems for the protection and promotion of human rights, working with national government agencies, constitutional bodies, the judiciary, the legislative branch, the international human rights system, the network of NHRI, civil society, and international development programs.
That, Your Honor, are essentially the coverage of the budget. The budget operational expenses that you have provided previously and will provide for the next fiscal year will cover those areas of human rights protection, human rights promotion, and human rights policy advisory services of the Commission, Your Honors. We are prepared to to respond to specific questions if there are any.
Thank you.
We just want to also highlight that the Senate provided us, and the House,
Mhm.
after the budget last year, provided a significant Tier 2 provision for our additional programs. But because of what has happened, this has not been released. So we have been
Oh.
operating under Tier 1 operations, and we, at the very least, we are trying very hard to maintain the same level of programs and services nonetheless, Your Honor.
Thank you, Chairman Chito. Yeah, may we hear from the PLLO? By the way, the chair acknowledges the presence of the distinguished minority leader, Senator Franklin Drilon. And earlier, I saw Secretary Adelino Sitoy, virtually that is. So, yes, who will present the budget of the PLLO? Undersecretary Gallardo. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. This is the 2021 budget proposal of the PLLO. Under the FY 2021 National Expenditure Program, PLLO's proposed budget is 110,992,000, broken down as follows. For general administration and support, personnel services is 19,452,000, and maintenance and other operating expenses 15,717,000, or a total of 35,169,000. For operations, formulation, implementation of advocacy strategies and strategic interventions towards stakeholders' consensus building on congressional initiatives, consistent with the policy reforms and development programs of the administration, the personnel services is 45,619,000, maintenance and other operating expenses 29,304,000, or a total of 74,923,000, or a grand total of 110,092,000. Now, as compared with the FY 2020 budget, the PLLO recommended budget for 2021 increased by 15%, or 14,456,000. This is due to the increase in personnel services of 12,410,000, or 26%, increase in MOE of 879,000, and the increase in automatic appropriation of 1,167,000. The increase in personnel services represents increase in salaries and other compensation due to the following: the second tranche salary adjustment, the creation of immediate support staff positions, the filling up of additional presidential legislative assistant, SG30, and the mandatory retirement of one employee. Now, as to the MOE and CEO utilization rate for 2020, as of August 31, 2020, it's 38%. The real reason is that due to the pandemic, most LLS activities, meetings, conferences, and trainings are being held virtually. Hence, the allocation for training and representative expenses has not been fully utilized, and there is also a slow procurement process due to the pandemic. And activities of the agency are usually held during the fourth quarter, the major activities, fourth quarter of the year, like the LLS plenary conference, the plenary of the GAA, like we host them with food and everything. The year-end assessment, the procurement of calendars, diaries for the members of the LLS, and of course the COS meetings of both houses. Now, the monthly disbursement program has been modified to adapt to the current situation. That's why we are availing of webinars for information dissemination, virtual interagency meetings, and other conferences. That is all for the PLLO, sir.
Thank you, Yusek Gallardo. Yung HRV VMC, do you have a presentation? Wala na siguro.
Your Honor, the HRB BMC is an attached agency with a
Yeah.
separate budget, and it's part of our line.
Okay.
But the presentation by our executive director did not include it
Yes,
because it has a separate executive director and a plantilla.
I know.
But its budget is about 39 million for the coming year. The updates on that, Your Honor, is that the main mandate of the HRV VMC is to establish a memorial, and a design competition was undertaken last year, and the AES for the winning design has been completed, and a bid will be opened for the construction. So the expectation is that before the end of the year, the construction would have been awarded, Your Honor, and give it a year or a year and a half for construction. So by the 2022, Your Honor, the memorial would have been fully established. In the meantime, Your Honor, the operational expenses are in research, collection of artifacts and materials, as well as preparation for curation, Your Honor. So that will be the expenses for the HRV VMC.
Thank you for the information. As a matter of courtesy and tradition, the chair will give way to the members of the subcommittee in their order of virtual appearance, namely Senator Amy Marcos, followed by Senator Bato de la Rosa, and last but not least, the minority leader, Senator Frank Drilon. Yes, Senator, and then Senator Coco Pimentel. Welcome, sir. Senator Amy Marcos is recognized.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Very basic questions, just following up on the COA recommendations with regard to the CHR. What actions has the Commission taken in relation to the 2019 audit findings regarding misclassified properties, unrecorded communications, equipment, cash advances, and various disbursements?
Thank you, Your Honor, for the question. We are pleased to report to this honorable committee that we have already satisfactorily answered all of those COA findings. And with regards the unrecorded PPE, we are pleased to report that such has already been harmonized in our books and in our tables, as well as those corresponding cash advances liquidated. And for this, the COA has given us a 2019 unmodified report, meaning to say that we have satisfactorily answered their COA findings according to their prescribed standards.
Okay. However, the COA report of 2019, like the past 3 years, continues to flag your violations in purchase of airline tickets, always through a single agency, CONAIL, without a contract and in flagrant violation of procurement laws. What's happened to that?
Yes, Your Honor, we do affirm that the COA has indeed surfaced that out of 125 million travel allocation for the past 3 years from 2016 to 2019, we have purchased airline tickets from Conay Travel Airs and Agency, 6 million using GAA funds and 4 million using special funds. And we would like to highlight that it's only 8% of the total travel allocation provided to the Commission over the past 3 years, which have failed to attach the required three canvas of three suppliers reflecting the
I
rates
think,
of the travel agencies.
I'm sorry.
Nevertheless,
What
we
says
have
otherwise?
committed.
They say that there isn't even a contract at all.
Ma'am, in 2017, we have entered into a general fare agreement with Philippine Airlines, and our procurement division has maintained a 1 million cash advance. There were instances when the 1 million cash advance was already used up, therefore forcing our implementing units to look for travel agencies elsewhere. Nonetheless, I would like to highlight that majority of those air travels were procured for the investigation of the Zamboanga siege, as well as the Marawi siege, and 7 were done because of forensic exhumations or autopsies. And therefore, the nature of those trips and travels were urgent and were unforeseen by nature. For those that are predictable, programmed, and can be foreseen, we have made sure that we undertook procurement of airline tickets through the GFA prescribed by COA.
Okay, I think there should be fair warning, given that this has been ongoing for 3 years since 2017. There should be fair warning from COA and heeded, hopefully, and finally by both the CHR as well as the PLLO, who have similar issues with travel. Lalo na ngayon na sinasabi nga na new normal at halos lahat ng meeting natin virtual at remote, siguro naman mababawasan na itong travel at sigurado na sana naman kinakailangan na maliban sa limitahan natin, sumang-ayon naman tayo sa mga patakaran ng procurement. Yun lang, maraming salamat. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ma'am.
Senator Amy Marcos. Senator Ronald Dato de la Rosa is recognized.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Good morning. May I know, Mr. Chairman, if andyan sila si physically present ba dyan sila si Chairman ng CHR at saka yung mga commissioners?
Yes, Chairman Gaston himself is present here. He's attending physically. Go ahead, please go ahead, Senator De La Rosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would like the CHR to know that alam kong sila ay very much worried na baka haharangin ko yung kanilang budget dito sa ating hearing na ito. Pero rest assured, sinasabihan ko po kayo as early as now na hindi po ako kagaya ng ibang legislators na ginagamit yung power of the purse to get even to sa kanilang mga opponents. Kagaya ng ibang ginagawa ng iba na hinaharang yung hostage yung budget ng government agency that is actively pursuing their allies. Kaya ako po ay lantarang sasabihin ko sa inyo na I am fully supporting your budget. Kung gusto nyo dagdagan yan, ay suporta pa rin ako. And I am very happy with the Commission on Human Rights with your condemnation in public, condemning the twin bombings of Hulu. Sana ganun kayo palagi at lalong-lalo na, ganun sana kayo ka-active mag-condemn pag yung atrocities ay ginagawa ng NPA. Sana ganun kayo kabilis mag-condemn. Maraming salamat po. Huwag po kayo mag-alala. Suportado ko kayo at all cost. Yun lang, Mr. Chairman. Maraming salamat.
Very reassuring. Senator Dillon is applauding. Yes, Senator Dillon is recognized. You're on mute, sir. You're on mute, Senator Frank.
Sorry. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to raise a few questions on the PLLO, not on the budget, which I have no problems with, but on certain policy issues and performance of the proper performance of PLLO's role. From what I understand, the PLLO is, as its name suggests, Legislative Liaison Officer, is supposed to be the go-between between Congress and the executive in terms of better coordination on the policies that is being enunciated by Congress through the passage of laws. Because of our system of checks and balance, the prerogative of the president in vetoing a measure is part of our system. However, we all agree that this is not always the best alternative because the better option is a closer coordination so that there can be a congruence of the policies of the executive and the legislative in terms of the laws we pass. Yesterday, Mr. Secretary Sitoy, during the privilege hour in the Senate, the senators complained about how the executive exercises its power to issue rules and regulations. So that the suggestions range from amendment of our own rules and participation in the drafting of the IRR. As correctly pointed out by the chairman, our chairman now, Senator Panfilo Lacson, he cited correctly a Supreme Court decision stating very clearly that Congress cannot participate in the formulation of the implementing rules and regulations. For the record, I was embarrassed that me as a lawyer failed to notice this, and it was Senator Lacson who noticed this principle. But having said that, indeed, in our system of separation of powers, we cannot participate in drafting of the IRR. We can either object to it by going to court and seeking the invalidation of the IRR, or we can take the political route, which is what this is the budget, and this is an accepted system wherein we make the executive answer for whatever complaints or shortcomings that we perceive it, the executive you have, through the budgetary hearings. And we can, open close quote, punish the, we can hold the executive responsible through a careful scrutiny of the budget if the Congress perceives the executive branch to be in excess of its prerogatives. Because I have said on record yesterday, crafting of the implementing rules is a prerogative of the executive. We cannot participate in that. We can politically criticize the IRR. We can criticize the IRR if it exceeds the boundaries of the law, or we can go to court, or we can hold the budget until the correction is done. But we cannot participate in crafting the IRR. In fact, in a number of laws that recently was passed by Congress, this representation expressly provided that nothing in the act shall be interpreted to be held in abeyance in terms of its execution by the absence of the IRR. In other words, even if there is no implementing rules and regulations, the law can be effective upon its publication. In other words, the effectivity cannot be held hostage by the lack of the implementing rules and regulations. So that's one area. The other area is the veto done by the president. You know, we all find it in the Senate at least such a waste of effort and time. If the debate or the piece of legislation which we have worked on and had a collective judgment on is vetoed by the president. But let me make it clear, that is the prerogative of the president to veto. We have no argument with that. But what I guess the message that I'm delivering is that a better coordination, a more active PLLO can save us time and effort by already pointing out which part of the law that we are working on is contrary to the policies of the president and makes the proposed law subject to veto. A classic example is the Coconut Levy Fund. I found it really embarrassing as a senator that after we have approved in BICAM the Coconut Levy Fund law and transmitted to the president, it was referred back to the BICAM. We had to recall the approval of the BICAM and then send it back to Malacanang, only again to be vetoed. So here, I cannot cite a more classic example of the failure of the system to work properly. If proper communication and liaisoning and coordination is made, then it should not have happened. If we really could not agree with the executive, then we will not just pass the law. Unless we have the ability to override the veto, which we do not have realistically. So given what we have today, the PLLO could perform a crucial function in improving the relationship between Congress and the executive, which is precisely the reason for its being. It's a liaison office. But I must state on the record that in these two instances, in the coordination on the crafting of the IRR for any law that we passed, and in the unfortunate vetoes of the president, then to me, this is a failure to perform the mandate of the PLLO, or Presidential Legislative Liaison Office. So may we have the comment of the Secretary on these two areas that we have brought up?
Yes,
Thank you, Mr.
Secretary Sitoy, please respond. And as an addendum, do you have free and unhampered access to the president in this? Because that is related. That's very important because you are the liaison officer, chief liaison officer. If you don't have access, then the concerns raised by Senator Dillon won't be, remedied or resolved. So please respond, Secretary Sitoy. You're on mute, sir. Kindly unmute. Yeah. Yeah, please unmute.
Maybe we can ask his assistant to help him unmute, Mr. Chairman.
There you go. Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead, Secretary Sitoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the members of the committee for the comments articulated by Senator Drilon. Really, in the matter of the passage of the COCO TV fund bill, we exerted our utmost to coordinate, and in fact, we had several meetings, not only with the members of the staff of the Senate, but also with the members of the staff of the House. But in regard to the reason for the veto, we were only apprised of the reason after the passage of after Congress had sent the bill to Malacanang. And while we received comments belatedly, we were advised that the comments were very confidential. So we could not communicate, we could not convey the message to Congress again. But we really exerted our efforts. We had several meetings, including our meeting with Senator Villar. But again, we are bound to respect the comments also, although belated comments of the other cabinet members. And so the basis of the veto was not articulated in advance, not communicated to us. So for that reason, we appeared helpless in the process. But notwithstanding that tragedy, we have exerted efforts in the matter of coordination with respect to the other bills. And we are seeking improvement of the process. And in fact, we have asked the cabinet secretaries to advise us in advance on their position paper with respect to any bill that is pending in Congress. And as of now, we have received early comments on whatever bills are pending, especially the bills involved as priorities by the President. And so we have now communicated to the respective committees where the bills are pending the comments of the cabinet clusters. We learned our lesson from the tragedy of the Coco Levy bill. Those are all, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Senator Sitoy. Yes, Senator Frank.
In effect, on just focusing, although I don't want to do it, just focusing on the Coco levy bill, what I gather from the secretary is the chairman was advised, was not advised, or was advised of the position of Malacanang on this point. Was Senator Villar appraised of this?
We tried to, we really coordinated with Senator Villar. And in fact, our meeting with Senator Villar was also attended by the staffers of some cabinet members. And then it was a smooth flowing process. We were not surprised in advance of what would happen later on. But suddenly there was a twist in the development because the focal point there was the appropriation of several millions, 10 million that Senator Villar wanted to be included in the funds allotted or savings of the Coco levy funds. But then the cabinet cluster did not like that to be charged against Coco levy, but charged against the general appropriation. So that was the focal point that caused the controversy, and the president ultimately listened to the view of the cabinet cluster. So we were helpless.
Mr. Chairman, just before Secretary Sitoy answered the question, you asked a very important question. Do you have access to the president? Obviously, from the answer of Secretary Sitoy, he does not have access. In fact, he admitted that the reasons for the veto were not articulated in advance, to use his own terms. And therefore, he was blindsided as to the views of the president. Because if he did and he relayed this to Senator Villar would have listened, being an ally of the president. But the fact that Senator Villar backed the version and in fact reviewed it again when it was returned to the BICAM Conference Committee simply indicates that Senator Villar was blindsided as to what the president's policy was. And the blindsiding is caused principally because the PLO was not a recipient of the information as to the policies of the president. We just want to make this of record, and we are hoping that this will not happen again because now, Mr. Chairman, we all know that the second version or the third version of this bill is again being debated in the Senate. So I would expect that in the next before we or within the next 30 days or so, this bill will again go to the president. We hope that it will no longer that there is a closer coordination and liaison so that it will not suffer the same fate. You know, I must say for the record, Mr. President, you and I, Mr. Chairman, were active in a number of crucial measures recently passed. The most important is the Bayanihan 1 and Bayanihan 2 very recently. I do not know if the majority or the chairman of the committees were notified or were made aware of the position of Malacanang. Well, if they were, I have not been benefited by that advice. But at least we passed and we finished the law, and it met the approval of the president. Whether or not that is because of consistency of these policies, I do not know. But the fact is, I have not been favored with a court with any view in advance of what the president wanted or the executive wanted. In any case, I want to place that of record so that year in and year out, this is what we put on the record as the shortcoming of the PLLO. But we have not been benefited by any improvement in liaisoning with us. Of course, not all cabinet members are like Secretary Dominguez, who would personally lobby with the senators on finance measures. Unfortunately, not everyone is of the same cap. Now, the other one is on the issuance of the implementing rules and regulations. Rightfully, the senators complain that there are instances when the IRR is contrary to the reason behind the law. Behind the law. That's one. And number two, there are instances when the law is not being implemented because of the lack of IRR, even if the law does not expressly provide for the issuance of the IRR. Legally, the president is correct in issuing implementing rules and regulations if, in his judgment, that is necessary because that's part of his job to execute the laws. But again, we wish it's a better coordination between the chamber where the law came from and the executive branch so that this friction will be reduced. Magrereklamo talaga ang mga senador at mga congressmen kung yung mga IRR na ginagawa ng kabinete ng Malacanang salungat doon sa batas or hindi na-implement yung batas dahilan sa walang implementing rules. So may we know if the good PLO secretary noted this complaint that the senators yesterday expressed during the privilege hour, and what does he intend to do about it?
We are taking note of that, sir, and we promise to coordinate in the formulation of the IRR. But unfortunately, when the IRR rules are being ironed out, being formulated, we are not notified and we are not involved in the process. But this time, we will insist on being notified, Mr. Senator. Now, going back to the Coco Levy Fund, during our meeting with Senator Villar, we articulated to her the position of some members of the cabinet cluster, but her immediate response was veto the bill. That was her reaction. Now, the good news is we tried our efforts. We tried our best to iron out the details, but ultimately, the executive department vetoed the bill.
Well, again, Mr. Chairman, it's quite obvious that there is a wide gap in the ability of Secretary Sitoy to coordinate the efforts of Congress, particularly the Senate and the executive branch. He admitted that he has no participation in the drafting of the IRR because he is not notified. This is a sad state because that is precisely the role of the PLLO to coordinate between the two branches so that we can do our work better. Well, that, Mr. President, I just want to make that of record. And I do hope that Secretary Sitoy can take these comments to heart. These comments are made in the hope that we could improve our working relationship with Malacanang, because at the end of the day, it is the people who will suffer from the waste of time that would result in policies being not in consonance with each other of both branches, resulting in unnecessary vetoes or vetoes that could have been prevented. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield the floor to any other colleague who wishes to raise questions.
Thank you, Senator Drilon. Senator Coco Pimentel is next. However, Senator Christopher Bongo has requested the chair to recognize him first because he's attending just to make a manifestation. So, Senator, with the permission of Senator Coco. Yes.
Sir, Senator Go
I
can
see
go
you
ahead.
nodding your head. So, Senator Go is recognized. Go ahead, Senator Go.
Debt of gratitude cannot be repaid. It is therefore in helping your fellow.
You're on mute, Senator Go. You're on mute. Kindly unmute. Senator Bongo, paki-unmute yung inyong gadget. Yes, anyway, he's already attending another hearing. So, Senator Coco Pimentel, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anyway, I have just a few comments. Of course, I'm not objecting to the budget for the PLLO. I'm just confirming to the Secretary na marami po talagang reklamo about coordination. Hence, all the more we should support the office through its budget para the budget is not the reason for the shortcomings. So, and then of course the CHR has many plans and programs, so they have my full support. May question lang po ko on a concept, not on the amount, because this is what I caught when I went online. Yung pong in the presentation of the PLLO budget, yung automatic appropriations, how was that explained, Mr. Chairman? Can I ask for the concept? How come they call it automatic appropriations?
Secretary Sitoy or Yusek Gallardo, would you like to respond? Secretary Sitoy?
Concept lang po, hindi sa amount. Okay lang po yung amount, yung concept lang.
Ito po yung remittance sa GSIS. So, yeah, retirement.
Okay. meaning to say these are the amounts required or mandated by certain laws that you have to
Yes, yes. Oh,
budget under your agency. Yun po ba yun?
yes.
Sige
Yes po.
Apo, at least nakuha ko. But yung term kasi medyo it has a certain connotation, but now I get it. So PLLO needs our full support for its budget so that, you know, pwede pa rin tayo magreklamo pero at least hindi magamit yung hindi maturo yung tama ba Senator Bato, hindi maturo yung budget as the reason why meron pong lack of satisfactory coordination. Yun lang naman, yun po tinatapat ko po kayo, Secretary, yan po ang mga I am your insider dyan sa Senado, yan po reklamo talaga na kulang po tayo ng coordination. So siguro not the secretary but the office should show its face more to the senators and the Senate as an institution. So I know you're doing it now but more kasi nga marami pa pong reklamo. So good luck po sa 2021. Thank you Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yes, before I recognize Senator De La Rosa, Undersecretary Gallardo, raising your hand.
Mr. Chair, a while ago, Senator Drilon was mentioning about the preparation of the IRR. Now, would it be improper if the members of Congress will be invited during the preparation phase of the IRR? Although there is that separation of powers, but you know, the problem really here is how to ensure that the IRR is along with the law itself. Would it be proper? That's my question, because kung ganon ang kung hindi improper, then we'll ask the agencies that will be preparing the IRs to invite the senators or their staff during the preparation phase.
Well, that could be a reasonable suggestion. However, there's existing jurisprudence on this, you know, that the legislature cannot participate in the crafting of the IRR. I think it's Abacada Guro something versus there's existing jurisprudence. So I don't know how it will pay out, ano, yung participation ng members of Congress pagka-craft ng, as Senator Drilon correctly pointed out earlier, yung rulemaking is different from lawmaking. So pag rulemaking, it's the exclusive domain of the executive. So I don't know how the senators and congressmen could participate in the crafting of IRRs.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Yusek Talapantan.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Maybe what we can do is we have a existing legislative license system divided into different clusters that deals with the different concerns, economic, climate change, and so on and so forth. Maybe as the laws are passed and also passed in the House and in BICAM, and then when it becomes into law, maybe the PLLO can take a step forward and well advise the concerned agency to coordinate with us so that in return, the PLLO may confer with the senators or the congressmen relative to this IRR so that the concern about the IRR being different from the spirit of the law may be thrashed out early on into the crafting of the IRR, sir.
Yeah, I think that's a better suggestion. That's why PLLO exists, you know, to liaise between the executive and the legislative branches of government. So, yes, Senator De La Rosa, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just would like to as an addendum to the comment of Senator Coco Pimentel. Yung budget po, hindi po sila nagkukulang ng budget dahil as of now, meron silang yung 2020 budget nila as of last quarter. 42.4% pa yung unobligated. So, hindi po natin masasabi na kulang sa budget. Hindi lang na-obligate yung kanilang 42%, 42.4%. And follow-up ko rin sana yung comment ni Senator Drilon regarding doon sa liaising. How do you term it? Liaisoning of this PLLO between the executive branch and the legislative branch. Kasi parang nakikita ko, ang liaising na ginagawa ng PLLO is parang up to the office of the president lang, or medyo nahirapan pa nga sila mag-liaise between the legislative and the office of the president. Sana you go down to the department levels para, yun nga, para matulungan ninyong matingnan itong crafting of IRR if gusto natin pakialaman yon through PLLO. So, yun lang sir sa akin. Kung medyo si Secretary Sito ay medyo mahina na, maraming may staff ka man siguro sir na kuwan dyan, pwede mo utusan dyan sa mga different departments para makipaglayas sa amin. Yun lang sir, maraming salamat.
Yes, would you like to respond? Bakit malaki nga yung unobligated ninyo?
On that issue, sir, I wish to
Ang liit ng
respond to
budget niyo,
the
pero ang laki
Secretary
pa rin
Boto
ng-
later, sir.
Yes, please.
Mr. Chair, in relation to that question,
Yes, Senator Drilon is recognized.
yes, in relation to that question of the chairman and Senator De La Rosa, may we know if any portion of the 2020 allocation of BLLO office was realigned to COVID-19 measures because it was unobligated? Was there a realignment, and how much?
Yes, please respond, PLLO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A total amount of 13,075,000 was returned to the DBM pursuant to DBM National Budget Circular number 580 dated April 22 as part of the PLLO contribution in the fight against COVID. This meant that we had to forego purchase of vehicles. So that was about 5 million pesos and about 7 million in total MOOE.
Well, this, Mr. Chair, this validates the observation of Senator De La Rosa that indeed it is not a question of budget because, as pointed out by Senator De La Rosa, so much was unobligated, and it is now confirmed that 13 million was realigned for COVID-19 responses. So it is not a question of budget because they are even unable to obligate the budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, would you like to respond?
Yes, sir. I'd like to respond to Senator De La Rosa's earlier observation. As I said earlier, sir, we have the legislative liaison system existing in the PLLO, whereby members of there are different department legislative liaison officers. They are a member of this legislative liaison office system that we initiated. They are divided into clusters, and it is in these clusters that the different measures are being discussed, where the issues are also being vetted. That is why it is not simply that we work only in Malacanang, but we also work directly with the different agencies concerned relative to any measure being proposed. As an example, of recent, the proposed bill of Senator Bongo on the Department of OFW was vetted through the PLLO and the Office of the Cabinet Secretary. We held series of meetings, webinars, and all to discuss the issues attending to the proposed bill that they are crafting. And we are happy to report that all the agencies that had concerns have already submitted their suggestions and their amendments to the proposed bill. And there is now an administration bill, which I hope has been filed by the office of Senator Bongo as of yesterday, maybe, or today.
Thank you, Yusek Salampantan. Yes, any more questions from the members? Yes, Senator De La Rosa.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gusto ko lang balikan yung Human Rights Commission. May tanong lang ako about yung plantilla positions nila. Kasi gusto ko kayong tulungan para mapuno yung inyong plantilla positions para wala na kayong rason na magsabi na hindi nyo naimbestigahan itong isang alleged human rights case dahil nga kulang kayo ng tao. Tanong ko lang, based on your staffing summary, there are a total of 175 unfilled positions in your agency. May we know what positions are currently vacant? How many of which are plantilla positions of investigators? What are the reasons for your failure to fill the plantilla positions for investigators? Gusto ko lang malaman from Human Rights. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman Gascon or Executive Director De Guia.
Thank you, Senator Lacson. To respond to the query of Senator Bato, we would like to share with you that majority of the unfilled positions pertain to lawyers and investigators in the region. We have been very earnest in our efforts to fill up all of these vacancies, and we have made sure that we have every week scheduled selection and promotion board meetings, as well as interviews and examinations in the previous year, most especially. Nonetheless, the vacancy is because as we have prioritized promotions, which is a sound management principle, necessarily some of the positions became vacant. That's one reason. Another reason is because for lawyers, it is very difficult to attract lawyers, especially in the regions, given the fact that we have low salary grade positions and very minimal, if not nothing, in terms of allowances grant to our lawyers. And therefore, it is not a lucrative profession for lawyers to be employed in the Commission on Human Rights. Nonetheless, we have rallied our Human Resources Division together with our regional offices to continuously fill up all of these vacancies, as we do feel that in total agreement with Senator Bato de la Rosa, this will greatly improve our capacity to investigate.
So,
Chairman,
Just
before
to
Senator
add,
De La Rosa.
just to add,
Chairman
Senator
Gascon.
De La Rosa, we do acknowledge that actually it was Senator Bato himself last year in the budget deliberations who highlighted this ongoing problem we have in staffing, because he noted that in relation to the one case in Negros Oriental, where we do not have a full regional office. We only have regional offices in the regional capitals, so in Cebu, but we do have a field office in Dumaguete. The good senator met our lone investigator, si Mr. Cañete. And nagtanong si senator at that time, bakit hindi madagdagan po ng mga investigador doon sa Negros kung saan ay maraming mga, at that time, na mga human rights violations na nagaganap. And as a result, Your Honors, yung ginagawa po namin ngayon ay tinutulak po namin ang mga regional offices na bilisan po yung pag-fill up. At ang naging strategy po, kung meron pong nabakanting, let's say, Special Investigator 2, kung qualified po yung Special Investigator 1, ay inaangat namin po doon para may konting advancement sa career. Tapos yun naman po ang pinapublicize sa publiko. Meron naman pong mga aplikante, pero napansin po namin mas mabagal po ang filling up nito sa regions kumpara halimbawa sa central office positions. Tapos yung nabanggit po ng aming executive director, sa market for lawyers sa gobyerno, medyo sabihin natin mayroong opening sa DOJ, sa Ombudsman, sa PAO. Madalas po ay yun yung nagiging preference ng mga the same, in a sense, cohort of lawyers that apply. Meron naman po nag-a-apply, ang ano lang is hindi namin na-fill up dahil nga po madalas ay nauunang choices nila po ay napagbibigyan po sila sa ibang mga ahensya. Pero pupusan po namin pa ito at ang intention po namin actually ay ngayon na we actually right now in our NBank we have a resolution to fast track yung SPB, yung selection board at through online interviews po. Hopefully ma-approve po namin within the week po yan para over the next few weeks more of these vacant positions will ultimately be filled. Particularly, Your Honor, because we understand that there is a civil service guidelines that will be implemented next year to reduce job order contracts. So we hope to be able to fast track the filling up of all of these plantilla positions using these new guidelines for hiring, Your Honor.
Malaki bang difference ang entry level compared to say DOJ or Ombudsman or any other?
Yung entry level po namin, opo. Kasi halimbawa, yung entry level po namin dati was Attorney 3. Ngayon po, napapayag na po ang DBM na ang entry level namin ay Attorney 4, SG 23 po yon. Ang problema lang po is while yung salary pareho, yung mga allowances, etc. Tapos halimbawa kung Office of the Solicitor General nagbabayad po yung mga ahensya sa OSG, tuloy mayroong allowances, wala po kaming ganoon. So ultimately, kung ang isang aplikanteng abogado ay multiple choices, often ay tinatanggap yung aming offer pagka walang pumasok na offer sa iba.
Are you not receiving grants from, say, other counterpart organizations in other parts of the world? NGOs?
We have currently, but it will end at the end of this month, an European Union project.
Yeah, can you not convert that to benefits, allowances of your lawyers?
Hindi po.
Hindi pwede.
Hindi po.
Specific.
Specific po.
Okay.
For normally activities and programs. We were also benefited by the this EU support to set up permanent regional offices. We were able to build over the last 5 years our own regional offices using these grants. And that of course will impact in terms of our rent, because yung MOE namin, most of our regional offices, because we're a relatively new agency, wala po kaming properties and buildings. So over time,
You're still squatting, di ba?
sa UP
And that's the reason why you cannot even upgrade your facilities.
yes,
Diba?
Your
I
Honor.
remember during our previous budget hearings,
Yeah, where ang nangyari po is there was a MOA with UP for our central office. Naglapse na. We're now in the middle of negotiating for a new MOA. The UP administration has been helpful. In fact, Your Honor, they allowed us to build within our current footprint. And Your Honors provided us with the fund to begin building, and actually we will be constructing that. Ang problema lang, yung augmentation binigay po ninyo for 2020, 35 million pesos para makumpleto yung building. Because of the COVID response, ito po yung aming binalik. In fact, the whole Tier 2 of 120 million, 35 was used for COVID response. Yung po yung to complete the building, and then the 85 million has not yet been released to us. So right now, we're negotiating with DPWH. Yung naibigay in previous year na 85 million, yung po ang pipilitin nilang gamitin, pero medyo may konting shortfall na 35 million na we had to let go of this year for the construction of the building, Your Honor.
are you at liberty to share with the committee yung reason why the EU grant is ending this year? Is there any particular reason?
The reason is it was a 4-year project and it will end at this time. September 30. It was actually extended. It was originally supposed to end in March, but because of COVID, it was extended 6 months. So it will end September 30. So completed na po. Actually, it's a EU project with two components, Your Honor. One is on the human rights side, and one is on the justice sector side with the Supreme Court, the DILG, and the DOJ. And right now, the EU is in the middle of negotiations for actually a larger EU project total, but hindi pa po napipirmahan ng Department of Finance. Ang tawag po dyan ay GoJust 2. In that program po, lalaki po yung sa justice sector na allocation from 10 million euros to 20 million euros. So, ang feedback sa amin sa aming counterpart sa justice sector is they're anticipating that over time, that matter should be resolved, and there will be a component for human rights again, Your Honor, which will help us perhaps build one or two more regional buildings, Your Honor.
And there's no requirement for a counterpart fund.
Well, first po, normally sa mga ganito, yung local taxes po is hindi po ang EU ang nagbabayad ng taxes, tayo po. Tapos normally, ang counterpart po is our personnel services. We quantify I guess the human resource component, and that becomes our counterpart. No? So normally hindi po ginagamit yung pang-allowances for lawyers or investigators, but then they participate in, let's say, the program like yung napag-usapan namin kanina, yung Climate Justice Initiative, yung relationship ng human rights sa climate change, yung impacts nun, that was supported by the EU project, Your Honor.
Senator De La Rosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, to the Commission on Human Rights, magbigay lang sana ako sa inyo ng unsolicited advice kung paano kayo makarecruit ng mga lawyers dyan sa inyo. Kasi nakikita ko parang kulang sa attraction yung ginagawa niyong recruitment. Alam niyo, may experience ako noon. Merong isang lawyer. Sana huwag niyo i-limit yung recruitment ninyo doon sa mga, baka sabihin nyo, baka may unwritten qualifications kayo dyan na dapat yung papasok sa CHR ay hindi pro-government, hindi pro-military, hindi pro-police. Alam mo, meron ako isa sa'yo, isang lawyer na ultimately naging Human Rights Commissioner na tayo doon, si Attorney Dominador Calamba.
Opo.
I don't know kung saan na siya ngayon.
Namatay na po siya.
Ha?
Namatay na po siya a few years ago.
Ay.
Pero he was our regional director in Region 11.
Yes.
In Davao area, and he became our commissioner, and he is still well liked and well loved in the commission, Your Honor.
Yes, alam po ninyo, Mr. Chairman, yung si Atty. Calamba na yun ay he was a human rights lawyer. At the same time, he was reservist in the military. Reserve officer po siya. Kaya he can play both sides. At he was very effective dahil nga pag merong na-commit na human rights violation, ang military doon sa Region 11, sa amin noon sa PC, si Lieutenant pa ako noon palagi naiimbestigahan niya ako noon. He can just get inside the camp and conduct investigations dahil yun nga, siya ay reserve officer ng military. Kaya very effective po siya sa kanyang mandate as a human rights investigator. So yun lang, gusto ko lang mag-advise sa inyo na mag-recruit rin kayo ng mga pro-military, pro-police dahil para yung madali makapasok doon sa mga kampo pag nag-conduct na investigation.
Your Honor, thank you for the advice, and we wish to reassure you po that in our selection and promotion process po, no political affiliation is ever considered. We just focus on the qualification standards. But Your Honor, we are really trying to push our HR, your human resources, to do more and to do better in both in recruitment and promotion. And hopefully, itong 165 vacant positions namin, in the next 3.5 months. Hindi naman po lahat dahil nagpo-promote rin, pero a significant number of these vacant positions will ultimately be filled. On your part about relating po with the security sector, the Commission on Human Rights, as you know, Your Honor, being the former head of the Philippine National Police, works with and engages the security sector on a sort of like partnership basis. And in particular, Your Honor, yung both the police and the military already have what are referred to as human rights affairs offices. And in fact, the head of the Human Rights Affairs Office of both the police and the military are part of the senior command staff. And we are doing our level best to improve this relationship with your human rights officers in the police and the military. And in particular, Your Honor, there has been progress in what's called human rights education. So yung aming human rights promotion part. Madalas iniimbita yung aming mga regional directors, tulad ng na-mention nyo si Director Calamba when he was a director in Davao, na nagiging resource person sa mga human rights trainings sa loob ng security sector. And this is continuing, and in fact, the human rights affairs offices of both the police and the armed forces have made great strides in developing their own human rights curriculum. Yung area of concern lang po namin is in the area of human rights protection. Pagka merong human rights violation involving the security sector, often, mas madali kasi pa yung magturo ng human rights. Pero para mag-imbestiga at ma-hold accountable, dun po may mga continuing challenges. But you may have read in the newspaper recently, we have signed as a Commission on Human Rights a data sharing agreement with the Department of Justice. So for AO 35 cases. So we are looking forward to continuing and deepening our partnerships with all agencies in the executive department for purposes of ensuring that accountability for violators will occur. And with your help, in continuing support of our budget, we will move in that direction, Your Honor.
Thank you, Chairman Gascon. The chair has a few questions. One of your proposed initiatives and efforts, yung monitoring of the implementation of the Bayanihan Act of 2020. Have you started this initiative?
Yes, Your Honor. May I refer to our executive director because when we were under ECQ, Your Honor, there was just a skeletal staff in the CHR. And at that time of the first few months of this pandemic, talagang dumami po yung mga complaints and she was on top of it. So she could give you a
So
picture
how
of what
much has
we've done.
it cost you, budget-wise? Is there a cost in the monitoring?
In terms of monitoring, Chair, it's a combination of online efforts as well as field investigation efforts. So our regional offices continue to conduct investigations pertaining to cases. But when it comes to, for example, human rights advice and counseling to victims, we have utilized online platforms. So we have Tatanggol Karapatan online, to make our services available. For victims of gender-based violence, we have a portal for them. For OFWs who have concerns, we have also provided online platforms for them. We have also strengthened our hotlines and our social media
So
accounts.
it's not too much of a drain, ano?
It's not too much of a drain, but our regional offices still continue to draw on regional fund travels because the CHR, there is a demand for CHR services on the ground, particularly when it comes to human rights cases. From March 15 up until August, we have received a total of 1,260 cases from central office alone, not including the regions. And majority of this needed or necessitated field investigation.
I asked that question kasi you may want to submit to us yung cost no, for the
Yes.
2021 budget for the period of amendments, di ba?
Yes, pa.
Ang related question is, how has the pandemic impacted human rights in our country? Meron ba?
Yes, Your Honor. Of course. In fact, the response to the pandemic requires a whole of government, a whole of society approach. And in the early weeks and months, it was very clear, at least from our perspective, that the approach was, shall we say, not sufficiently public health oriented as much as it was enforcement of rules oriented. And so we saw cases of people who were not sufficiently informed without masks, who were arrested. There were, on the local level, people were placed in jails. People who were so-called violators were punished by being under the sun and all of this. So, but over time, as the public was making complaints about the irrationality of this kind of response, we saw that the government has adjusted and become much more, let's say, human-centered. No? So in that process, nabawasan po na rin naman yung degree ng complaints that were coming in. But we noticed that there was an uptick of complaints into our social media accounts, into our hotlines
That's a
during the
very thin
initial
line,
period.
Yung health issue vis-a-vis human rights violations. Di ba? Kasi there are government regulations that would affect human rights, yung movements of people and so
Opo.
forth and so on. So how do you balance?
Siyempre, dapat mag-balance and people have to respond. People have to cooperate. We supported the quarantine. It's just that it's a question of perspective, Your Honor. Yung dapat po mas public health, humanitarian yung approach. And I think we've learned over time. We've become a little bit more kinder and gentler compared to the early months. But people are hurting and are in need of assistance, and we still need to do more, Your Honor, to assist both victims, the marginalized, those that are often unheard, and the frontliners, Your Honor. And so kami po sa commission as a monitoring agency, ultimately what we try and look at is see if there are abuses, and if there are abuses, we call out so that this can be addressed. We will continue to monitor, and when we receive complaints, we have a very strong referral system. So it's not condemnatory in the first instance, Your Honor.
Moving on, another topic, ito sa budget. Sa budget call, you requested for 1.423 billion. Yung Malacanang endorsed to us 860. Diba? So, ang tanong ko, in general terms, ano yung masasacrifice na programs, activities, and projects as envisioned in your 1.4 trillion request?
The purpose of our requesting so that we could do our ongoing programs in human rights protection, human rights promotion, and our policy advocacy work, what we had hoped with the additional funds would be to, in a sense, be able to do more and to do better in our work. So essentially to strengthen our operations, because if you will look, Your Honor, based on the budget proposed by NEP, our operational expenses will be about
Ang tinamaan sa inyo, yung support to operations and operations,
Opo,
Yun
dun
ang
po,
malaki, 56 million.
opo, yung salaries, dahil
Okay lang.
okay lang po yun.
Pati yung administrative support, medyo nag-increase pa, although paltry sum, 3.7 yata. ang
That's
increase.
right po. Tulad ng last year po, yung nakita po natin na may impact po yung sa ability to respond quickly, yung QRT. But of course, dahil sa pandemic, medyo na antala po yan. Dahil right now, halimbawa, yung ilang investigators namin ay work from home. Pagka may pumasok po na complaint at kailangan magpadala, nagmo-mobilize sila from home. So may mga delays po yan. So we're trying to, of course, like everyone, try to maximize online platforms. But in human rights cases, Your Honor, we need to be on the ground. Unfortunately, hindi po kami tulad ng ibang ahensya sa executive department na may presence up to the sitio precinct level. Kami po nasa regional offices lang po. Meron kaming mailan nilang mga field offices, pero ang bulto ng mga tao namin nasa regional offices. So regional capitals lang. Nangyayari po yung mga violations, human rights violations, sa mga lugar na malayo po dito. Hindi tulad dito sa Metro Manila, halimbawa, let's say in Mindanao po, Davao ang aming regional office, pero nagaganap sa bundok na kunasan ng mga IP ang mga violations. So may
Wala
impact po.
masyadong access sa information.
That's right. So by the time it comes to us, as we need to mobilize, kung mako-constrain yung operations expenses po namin, may impact sa ability to respond quicker. We will still respond, but mayroong impact po.
Again, I asked that question for purposes of prioritization, And as you mentioned earlier, all these years that I've been chairing this subcommittee, di ba meron kami laging dagdag? In fact,
Yes po.
sa 2020, mahigit 100 million yung nadagdag sa inyo, no? Over and above the level of NEP and GAB, di ba?
Yes po.
Mas
Papasalamat po kami doon. 120 po ang nadagdag nyo sa amin this year sa Tier 2.
Yeah.
Unfortunately po, hindi po na-download.
Hindi na release.
Hindi na na-release.
Anyway, sige, let's see how it develops, kasi in the midst of this pandemic, medyo napaka-unpredictable ng situation, yung mga developments. So,
Nauunawa naman po namin at handa naman, lahat po tayo kailangan magsakripisyo.
Right.
Ang ano lang is, wag po sana umabot sa punto na naantala ang dapat na serbisyong
At least the
ipinibigay.
basics.
Opo.
So, that's it. Do I hear a motion from the members? Yes, Senator De La Rosa.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the proposed budget of the CHR and PLLO be submitted to the plenary.
Senator Dillon is recognized.
Yes, we concur with Senator De La Rosa, but may we request that once the good chairman sponsors this budget on the floor, that the PLO should provide him with a written plan on how to improve the liaison system between the executive and the Senate, so that we do not again see our time being wasted by the lack of coordination. Just that, Mr. Chairman, if we can request that it be included in your sponsorship speech.
They hear you and they're nodding their heads, Senator Dillon.
Thank you very much. We second the motion of Senator De La Rosa.
There's a motion properly seconded. An objection? The motion is approved. So this hearing is suspended. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Ipa-email mo kay